Welcome to Endless Love Stories. Before we dive into today's absolutely unbelievable true story, make sure to smash that subscribe button, hit like, and share this video because what happened next will leave you speechless. My name is Tyler, and I'm 24 years old. Last month, my mother tried to destroy what she thought was my credit card in a fit of rage. But she made a mistake so shocking that it ended up costing her everything she had worked for her entire life. What she burned wasn't my credit card at all, and when she realized what she had actually destroyed, her world came crashing down in ways she never could have imagined. Let me start from the beginning, because this story is absolutely wild. I'm the youngest of 3 kids, and my mom, Patricia, has always been what you'd call a control freak. Even after I graduated college and got my own apartment, she still tried to manage every aspect of my life. She would show up unannounced, go through my mail, and constantly lecture me about my spending habits, even though I had a good job as a marketing coordinator and paid all my own bills. The problem was that Mom had this old school mentality that parents should control their adult children's finances until they got married. She was furious when I got my first credit card at 22, claiming I was too irresponsible to handle credit and that I would ruin my future with debt. The truth was, I was actually very responsible with money. I only used my credit card for emergencies and always paid it off in full every month. But Mom couldn't let it go. She would constantly ask to see my credit card statements, demand to know what I was buying, and threatened to take action if she thought I was being reckless. I kept telling her that I was an adult and my finances were none of her business, but she insisted that as long as I was her son, she had the right to protect me from myself. Things escalated when I started dating my girlfriend, Jessica, 6 months ago. Jessica is amazing. She's a nurse, incredibly responsible, and we have a great relationship. But Mom immediately decided that Jessica was a gold digger who was using me for my money, even though Jessica actually makes more money than I do and always insists on splitting our dates. Mom became obsessed with the idea that Jessica was manipulating me into spending money on her, even though our relationship expenses were completely normal. Dinner dates, movie tickets, small gifts for birthdays and holidays. Mom would interrogate me after every date, demanding receipts and explanations for every dollar I spent. The situation reached a breaking point 3 weeks ago when Jessica and I decided to take a weekend trip to celebrate our 6-month anniversary. It was nothing extravagant, just a small bed and breakfast about 2 hours away, but Mom completely lost her mind when she found out. She showed up at my apartment screaming about how Jessica was bleeding me dry and that I was going to end up bankrupt because of some manipulative woman. During this confrontation, Mom spotted my wallet on the kitchen counter and grabbed it before I could stop her. She pulled out what she thought was my credit card and started waving it around, yelling about how this piece of plastic was going to ruin my life. I tried to grab it back, but she held it above her head and declared that she was going to save me from myself once and for all. That's when Mom did something that still gives me chills to think about. She marched over to my stove, turned on the gas burner, and held the card directly in the flame while screaming, "This is what I think of your irresponsible spending!" She watched with satisfaction as the plastic melted and burned, thinking she had just destroyed my credit card and taught me a valuable lesson about listening to my mother. But here's where the story gets absolutely insane. What Mom had grabbed and burned wasn't my credit card at all. In my wallet, I keep my actual credit card in a special RFID blocking sleeve to prevent identity theft. The card Mom had grabbed and destroyed was actually a backup debit card for a joint savings account that she and I had opened when I was 18 for college expenses. Here's the kicker. Mom had been using that joint account as her primary savings account for the past 6 years. She had been depositing her paychecks, her retirement contributions, and even money from selling her car into that account because she thought it was safer than her regular bank account. She had accumulated over $47,000 in that account, thinking it was just a convenient way to help me with college expenses, even though I hadn't used it in years. Mom didn't realize her mistake immediately. She was so proud of herself for taking control that she spent the next hour lecturing me about responsibility and respect for parents. She left my apartment feeling victorious, thinking she had finally put me in my place and saved me from financial ruin. The reality hit her 3 days later when she tried to use the joint account to pay her rent. The debit card she tried to use was declined, so she called the bank to find out what was wrong. That's when the bank representative explained that the account had been frozen because the primary debit card had been reported as destroyed and they were waiting for account verification before issuing a replacement. Mom panicked and rushed to the bank in person, trying to explain that she had accidentally destroyed the card, but that she needed immediate access to her money. But here's where things got even worse for her. Because it was a joint account with both our names on it, and because I was listed as the primary account holder since I had opened it originally, the bank needed both of our signatures to unfreeze the account or issue a new card. When Mom called me frantically, begging me to come to the bank with her, I told her I was too busy to help right away. I didn't tell her this, but I was actually furious about what she had done. Destroying what she thought was my credit card was a massive violation of my privacy and autonomy, and I wanted her to understand the consequences of her actions. For 2 weeks, Mom couldn't access any of her money. She had to borrow cash from my siblings to pay her bills, and she was getting increasingly desperate as her rent deadline approached. She called me multiple times a day, begging me to help her unfreeze the account, but I kept finding reasons to postpone our trip to the bank. During those 2 weeks, something beautiful happened. Mom started to realize how much she had overstepped her boundaries and how her need for control had backfired spectacularly. She began apologizing not just for destroying the card, but for years of invasive behavior and treating me like a child instead of respecting me as an adult. The real turning point came when Jessica and I returned from our anniversary trip. We had a wonderful time, and I posted some photos on social media of us enjoying dinner at a nice restaurant. Mom saw the photos, and instead of her usual complaints about my spending, she called to ask if we had a good time and to apologize for trying to sabotage our relationship. When I finally agreed to go to the bank with Mom, she was a completely different person. She was humble, apologetic, and genuinely remorseful about her behavior. At the bank, while we were waiting for the paperwork to unfreeze the account, Mom did something that shocked me even more than her burning the card. She asked the bank representative to remove her name from the joint account entirely and transfer all the money into a new account solely in my name. When I protested that it was her money, she said, "Tyler, I've been treating you like you're irresponsible with money when the truth is, you're more responsible than I am. You save for college, you pay your bills on time, and you've never asked me for financial help. Meanwhile, I've been so controlling that I nearly lost my life savings because I couldn't mind my own business." Mom continued, "I want you to have this money as an apology for not trusting you and for interfering in your relationship with Jessica. Use it for whatever makes you happy, maybe a down payment on a house with Jessica, or save it for your future. I trust your judgment completely." I was stunned. This was the same woman who 3 weeks earlier had been burning what she thought was my credit card to save me from myself. Now she was voluntarily giving me her entire life savings because she finally understood that I was a responsible adult who deserved her respect, not her control. I didn't take all the money, of course. I convinced Mom to keep most of it for her own retirement, but I did accept $10,000 as a genuine apology fund. Jessica and I used part of it for a beautiful vacation to Europe, and we're saving the rest for our future together. The most amazing part of this story is how completely our relationship transformed. Mom went from being a controlling, overbearing parent to being a supportive, respectful mother who treats me like the adult I am. She loves Jessica now and has apologized to her multiple times for assuming the worst about her intentions. Mom even asks Jessica for advice about dating because she started seeing someone new herself. Last week, Mom called to thank me for not immediately helping her unfreeze the account. She said those 2 weeks of being unable to access her money gave her time to reflect on her behavior and realize how much damage her controlling nature was doing to our relationship. She admitted that if I had rushed to help her right away, she probably wouldn't have learned this valuable lesson about respecting boundaries. The credit card that Mom thought she was destroying? I still have it, and I use it responsibly, just like I always did. But now when I use it, I don't have to worry about Mom interrogating me about my purchases or threatening to take action against my financial decisions. Jessica and I are now talking about moving in together, and Mom is genuinely excited for us. She's even offered to help us look for apartments, not because she wants to control where we live, but because she wants to support our relationship and our happiness. The lesson here isn't about getting revenge on controlling parents, but about how sometimes people need to face the consequences of their actions before they can recognize the damage they're causing. Mom's attempt to control my finances ended up costing her access to her own money, and that irony was exactly what she needed to understand how inappropriate her behavior had been. Sometimes the people who think they're protecting us are actually the ones we need protection from. But with patience, clear boundaries, and a willingness to let people learn from their mistakes, even the most controlling relationships can be transformed into healthy, respectful ones. Mom and I are closer now than we've ever been, not because she controls me, but because she respects me. And that respect was worth every day she spent unable to access her own money because of her shocking mistake. That's our incredible story for today from Endless Love Stories. If this story amazed you, please subscribe to our channel. Smash that like button and share this with someone who needs to hear about setting healthy boundaries with family. Sometimes the biggest mistakes lead to the most beautiful transformations. Until next time, keep believing in endless love that respects and supports instead of controls.